What is up, everybody? Welcome back to yet another installment of 5 anime titles that you may have missed, or hidden gems of the anime sphere. Yes, after going through over 2,000 anime titles, I decided to scour through them and find all the ones that seem to have very low memberships and whatnot on different websites, to sort of give me an indication of what shows did people completely skip. Whether the art style didn't work or just didn't hit the algorithms, whatever, people just didn't watch them. These are shows that, while not all are perfect, they're those type of shows that I had a lot of enjoyment from them, and I really do feel like they deserve more attention. Ranging from 5,000 members on Mel to 100,000. Whereas your typical shonen series can get upwards of 1.5 million people. But yes, if you're one of those types that feels like they've watched it all and just is looking for something different, this is the video for you. I'm going to start off with the shows that have the most viewership and then slowly get into the more obscure. So with that said, let's jump into this 5 anime you may have missed. Kicking things off, this one is near and dear to my heart, a series that literally breaks my heart that it doesn't have enough attention. While yes, its first season got upwards of 166,000 members on Mal, over time, that number dwindled, which typically happens with a lot of sequel anime. And this one more so than any because of the gap between its seasons, dropping from 166 to 109 to 33,000 for its final season. And yes, that series is Utawaramano. Its sequel, False Faces, and its final season, Mask of Truth. I absolutely adore Utawaramano. From the amazing animation work that White Fox did with it, to its massive size story, to every single one of its characters. This is one of those series that, despite it having a massive cast, I absolutely adore so many characters within it. Its original series, Utawaramano, that released way back in 2006, opens up with a guy that has no memory of his past. He wakes up in this village with this mask attached to his face that he can't remove, and everybody around him isn't human. They're like these beast folk. And because this village is taken care of him and he grows an attachment to the people within it, he finds himself stuck in a war. He helps this area kind of rise up against the powers that are there and claim their own independence. And that quickly goes into an interesting direction towards the later parts of it, where pretty much everything flips on its head. It just has this big massive twist that makes you go, wait, so everything I knew is sort of a lie. And then getting into False Faces and Mask of Truth, it kind of follows a different character with almost a similar origins. And it expands on the original story because it's within the same world itself. It just kind of continues the story. This is a series that honestly is one of my favorite fantasies of all time. It's not any isekai or anything like that. It's just a pure fantasy with war and politics and the characters that are kind of just stuck in the middle of a really nasty war. With a twinge of harem in there as well, which honestly was kind of the worst part of Mask of Truth, but it didn't ruin the entire overall series. I highly recommend Utawaramano. If you have time, it's like upwards of 75 total episodes. It's a massive story, and I truly love it. Moving on, let's get into some artsy stuff here. The Hike story. Yes, I am not a massive fan of Science Saru, but I can honestly say, Naoko Yamada, I had to check this out. And I'm really happy that I did. For those who don't know, the Hike story follows the Taira clan, which is a very powerful clan during the Ginpei War. And this is around the 1200th century. It follows a girl named Biwa, who is a Biwa player. And at some point, her father is killed because she spoke out against the Taira clan. And at some point, she comes across one of the Taira clan members, Shigemori. And Shigemori is the son of the current Taira clan leader. And she tells him that she foreseen in a vision the fall of the Taira clan, which oddly enough, he actually believes her because he's able to see the ghosts of his fallen comrades. So after he takes Biwa into the family, what sort of follows this is you see the Taira clan itself, how it functions, and yes, the unfortunately actions of Kiyomori, who is the leader of the Taira clan. This is a guy that seems to do a lot of things because he finds amusement of it and he likes to flex his muscles. And that ultimately leads to, yes, this is actually a historical story, the downfall of the Taira clan, which is, yes, sort of hard to stomach. This is not a happy story in the end, but it's an actual story. The only thing really being fictitious here is the inclusion of Biwa, who actually stands as the storyteller of the Taira clan. Now, I will admit, this is a difficult story to follow. If you're not a huge, massive Japanese history buff, it's going to have a lot of phrases, terms, names and everything that you have to sort of keep track of. It is one of those shows that as I was watching it, I had to pay close attention. So if you're good at paying attention to stuff or you're a history buff, it's not going to be a problem, but just for anybody else, be aware of that. But the payoff is really, really solid. I really, really love this story and the way that it was portrayed. It's visually beautiful. Science Sour, like I said, even though I've had issues with them in the past with their styles and stuff, they did an amazing job here. I really, truly can't see any other studio handling the show the way they did. It was almost like old Japanese scrolls and artwork just brought to life. And yeah, having the Inca style storytelling that Biwa would do, it's just a really beautiful, heartbreaking, and just powerful story. I highly suggest Hige Story, especially if you're a history buff. Moving on to number 3, which is Super Cub. I love Super Cub. I will always love Super Cub. Please go watch Super Cub. It's literally the show that when this was airing, I was just screaming at the rooftop, everybody, please just try Super Cub. This is truly a very, very special series for me. It's just one of those shows that almost at face value seems like an overly simple slice of life show, but at its core, it's just so much heart. And I almost thought that this show would almost get a second win because Akebi Sailor Uniform was by the same artist. And so I was hoping with Akebi Sailor Uniform getting a lot of attention when it aired, that would sort of shuffle people over, but it didn't get too much of a push after that. Super Cub follows a girl named Koguma. And Koguma, you get a sense of really early on, she doesn't really have anything. She doesn't have family there. She lives on her own. Her life is sort of empty. She just goes to school, attends school, and returns back home to an empty house. It really does give you this sense of isolation that she has early on. Well, at some point, she gets passed up by somebody on a motorbike, and she decides on a whim to go to buy a Super Cub. And thankfully, it seems as if the shop owner got an indication this girl needs something. Like, this girl needs something to spark her life. And kindly enough, he went off and dragged this one Super Cub out of his shop and sold it to her for 10,000 Japanese yen, which is, yes, really, really cheap. I mean, that's less than $100. He passes it off as that this bike has caused the death of like 3 people, which you get a story of that later on. But what sort of follows this is seeing Koguma as she sort of gets a new spark in her life. She now has purpose, a new thing that she gets to learn about, and it sort of shows her as she discovers new things about a Super Cub, how to maintain it, how to take care of it, different odds and ends, learning how to ride it and all this kind of stuff, gaining their license. And yes, also meeting other people who have interest in Super Cubs, sort of finding a mutual understanding with other people. She's meeting people, she's going new places, she's discovering things, and every new encounter she has or achievement she has is just this moment of just kind of celebration as you're watching it. Every time Koguma smiled, it was just so great because it was a lot in how it was portrayed. The director and the studio working on this series did a great job using things like warm colors in certain mood shifts and whatnot. Yes, this isn't a high action, crazy story or anything. This is just a show that you kind of sit back, relax, and watch somebody achieve things. It's simple but impactful storytelling. What most people think isn't much of an achievement is huge for her. And in discovering that, it really does hit you. Again, I'll say it, I'll keep saying it. Please go watch Super Cub. Moving on, we have Magical Circle Guruguru. This show is so fantastic. And as per usual, pre-warning here, comedy is subjective. Some people find this hilarious. I found it hilarious. A lot of people I know found it hilarious, and I highly suggest it. Magical Circle Guruguru opens up with a guy named Nikke who is in this remote village, and at some point, he is claimed to be the next hero, and he's shipped off to the king. He's assigned to go out and defeat the Demon Lord, and at the same time, he's assigned a partner, Kukuri. And Kukuri is a part of this clan and a magic user. And even though Nikke is not really fond of doing this whole thing, he doesn't want to be a hero. He sets out on his adventure, traveling around the world to find all the secrets of magic and take down the Demon Lord. Magical Circle Guruguru, where it sort of works, is the fact this is sort of a semi-oldish style comedy. This is technically a remake of the original's Magical Circle Guruguru. I'm talking about the 2017 version here. It plays off a lot of humor around anime itself and comedy circling around anime tropes and whatnot, while also introducing a lot of jokes around JRPGs. So if you're a big fan of old Japanese RPGs, you're gonna get a lot of that humor in here. There's even a lot of stylizing and stuff for old things like Dragon Quest and stuff. But at its heart is really the comedy. The comedy really did hit me. It's super goofy. The only aspect of it that I really didn't like was the old man. I just got sick of him really quickly. But overall, I just love these characters. Kukuri was so freaking cute, and I love her Seiyu so much, and so that's partly why. Nikke constantly being thrown off by her cuteness. Goofy references to things like Sailor Moon, sound effects from Gundam. It's just a boatload of fun, and you'll probably know within the first few episodes if it's going to be a comedy that works for you. It worked for me, and I highly suggest it. Finally, for my number one of this list, which number one doesn't mean it's better than all the other stuff, it just means that it's the worst in memberships in MAL, which yes, had like 5,000 members on my anime list. Woof. I think this is literally like the least memberships that I have of all the shows that I've watched on MAL. Yes, that is Hagane Orchestra. Hagane Orchestra is a very interesting series. While I won't claim that it is the greatest anime of all time, I will say that the time that I spent watching it was actually entertaining. Hagane Orchestra takes place with the members of this armored vehicle customization shop, and over time they're trying to figure out ways of advertising their shop. And what follows this is just pure shenanigans. Just so much comedy revolving around making fun of themselves, making fun of anime, and yes, a lot of humor around gacha games. They're basically making fun of gacha games and just making comedy around marketing themselves. Yes, padding downloads, tons of Fate Stay Night references and ripoffs. It was sort of one of those series that when I watched it, I was really expecting nothing and got a whole bunch. The only unfortunate thing is I don't think it's necessarily available anywhere. Crunchyroll's already delisted it, and that's sort of unfortunate because it was a good watch. So I would probably say if you're a big fan of gacha games, I would say give it a shot because I think that's where you're gonna get all the humor really. Whereas most people that are anime fans that don't play gacha games are probably not going to get a lot of the humor. But that's it. That's all for this edition of 5 anime you may have missed. Let me know in the comments down below. This will be the challenge going forward. Have you watched everything here? And if you did, I'll give you some credit. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you got my content. I do news reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support it more, I have a Patreon link, a tips link, super thanks, and membership button down below. I greatly appreciate everybody that supports the channel. You guys mean so much to me, and y'all take care.